Hello, socialites. Welcome back to Survivor Social, the Survivor podcast where we discuss Survivor with a focus on the social elements of the game. My name is Tegwyth. I'm back again with my amazing co-host, Cara, and we have an amazing guest today, Brian Corridan from Survivor Guatemala. Brian, how are you today?
I'm super good. Happy to be here. Always a pleasure.
How are you feeling about the season? I mean, we're 2 people into the jury. What's the vibe?
It's a good one, right? Like, it's better than a lot of the new era seasons. I feel like they've kind of got a vibe going now. I mean, last season was very Gaboni. This one feels more just like standard, pretty solid season. I'm getting like maybe Philippines vibe, like good players, solid blind sides, good season. That's like where I am right now with it.
Absolutely. And Cara, how are you feeling after last night's episode?
It was another good episode. I really enjoyed it. There was, it was action-packed. There was a lot happening, and yeah, just another great episode. I'm loving it.
Another banger from season 47, at least in my opinion. Before we dig into the episode, though, make sure to like and subscribe to Survivor Now on YouTube and Spotify. As always, remember, we are live in multiple places. So if you want to say hi, chat, if you have a question, please, we love to have you guys follow along with us. So please do not be shy, and we'll see you in the comments. But let's dig into the episode. I want to start off at the beginning of the episode. Great place to start off. We see after the Sierra blindside, Rachel and Sam, we see them come together. They say, we still want to work together. We were both blindsided. Brian, do you think that we're going to see this longevity of a relationship? I mean, we like fast forward through the episode, we did see Rachel tell Sam what was going on. So do you think that this kind of relationship is going to continue on throughout the season?
Between Rachel and Sam, huh? I mean, they don't really have much of an option. No one wants to work with them, so they're sort of forced to be together. Although, Sam was saying, I don't see a path forward with us, just the two of them, because I think they're just going to take whatever opportunity arises, right? So if Lava wants one but not the other, I don't think they're beholden to each other in that way. And I think that Rachel doesn't owe Sam anything, after the Annika blindside, and while she had nothing to do with the Sierra blindside, still, I don't think there's a lot of love lost there. I don't think they have a connection on a personal level. It doesn't feel like. I'm not sure Rachel has a personal connection with anyone, really, to be honest. I think she's a likable person. I actually think she's a great player from a strategic standpoint, but socially, who does she have?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really, really good point, because she was, in theory, blindsided last time. She wasn't really involved in a lot of the other votes, because she's been like blindsided or just like not even at tribal council. So I think that's a really good point. Who is in Rachel's corner? Now, Cara, do you agree with Brian, or do you think that you see these relationships brewing?
I mean, I find it weird how after Soul sent Rachel the safety without power thing, you would think that would be like a building point for them to start building something, and then maybe fill her in the blind side on Sierra last round, or just, I don't know, give her something that's going on. So I don't know, I find that was weird. And then I don't know, I feel like if I was Rachel after this, I would be like so upset with Sam for going immediately and telling Soul. Like, I feel like, just for me, like, that would be something I would be like, I can't trust Sam with anything. But like, she is kind of in a tough place where, like, who else does she really have?
Yeah.
But I would keep that in the back of my mind.
So everyone online loves Saul. I love Saul. I mean, like, okay, yeah, Saul, great. La la la, Saul. But like, why? I mean, he's not strategic, right? People are like, oh, like Saul for S50. I'm like, why? Like, look, like he's a good guy. I have no ding on Saul at all. Like, I think he's smart. I think he's likable. He's rootable. But like Saul for S50, like people are like, wow, he played that advantage for Rachel. Like, what was his other option? Like, he found it, and then like you give it obviously to the one person who's out. There's freaking five or four. It was 5 because John was still there. So it's 5 Tuku. Like, obviously you give it to Rachel. That wasn't like a stroke of mastermind genius. And then, like, kind of looks like he failed to capitalize on the goodwill for that because Rachel didn't go to bat for him. Like, so, did Saul really do anything that makes me really want him to want to see Saul play again? No. that's like a hot take. I feel like the internet, like Saul is like baby girl of the season. Like the internet's new boyfriend. And I'm like, look, I get it. He's a good guy. Is he a great player? No.
You don't want to see the burps on season 50?
Can I tell you how to mute the TV? I was like, what is wrong with these people? Like, the last thing I want to hear is like, okay, so there's the Shrek the musical, right? So like I'm commuting to work and I do the Broadway channel every now and then they'll play that song from Shrek the musical, which is like, I don't know, they're fighting about like who had a worse life or something. And at one point they just like get into an argument about farting. And it's just like, and I'm like, every time it comes on, I'm like, who authorized this? Who was like, what everyone wants to hear, bodily functions on repeat? Like, what's wrong with people? I have to mute it.
That moment was crazy. And can I just say, those burps felt CGI'd or like felt like they were like added in because those are so crazy and unnecessary. And Gabe's, they felt fake. And maybe I don't think they were, but they felt like, what was that? Like that was absolutely wild. But I will say, I agree with you, Brian. Like, I honestly, that's kind of why I think that Saul was a very interesting vote, this vote, because I truly, and maybe when you're on the island and you're getting to know these people and you have such a, nice person, such as Saul, that might seem like a bigger threat. But from where I'm sitting, it is very interesting that they took out Saul right here. And I know it was driven by Genevieve, right? Like Genevieve felt like she had a vendetta. She wanted to go and get Saul. But like, was that the biggest threat to get out right now? I really don't think so. And the fact that Kyle was not a bigger name on people's lips shocked me. And I think that just goes to show how like the physical threat, the person who's the biggest physical threat might not be the biggest threat in Survivor. And that's not like a hot take or anything, but it's just so interesting how he's won every single immunity challenge except for this one. He's won, but he's in the final 2, and yet he was barely a blip. And yes, he was one of the 3 names thrown out, but he wasn't really one of the names. And so it's just like, what was Saul doing to garner this kind of, chutzpah against him? It just doesn't really make a ton of sense, but it makes it a very interesting vote, in my opinion. Cara, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, it was Genevieve basically admitting, which I love, by the way. It's just like, I'm petty, like I'm still bitter about Rome, and I'm like, see, this is the kind of stuff I tune in for, like this emotional nonsense play. It's not a game body season. Although I'd also argue it's not exactly a season with a ton of standout personalities. Like there's a lot of very good, solid players, like people who kind of have heads on their shoulders. You've got Caroline, you've got Genevieve, you've got Saul to a degree, you've got Teeny, Sam. You've got a lot of like, okay, you guys aren't an idiot. Like none of you are dumb. You all, earned your spot on the show. You're compelling to a degree, but like, would I call anyone on the season a Tony, a Parvati? Like, there's no one who I'm just like, this person has the X factor that I want to see play over and over and over again. Some of them I think could flourish on a second season and really kind of come into their own and have a bit more confidence and agency. But right now I'm like, oh, I'm watching a bunch of people who are very reasonable human beings, which is, I think, coming off of last season, a pretty stark contrast because last season kind of lacked in that department. And so last season was just a bunch of crazies going at it with a lot of passion and a lot of emotion and not a lot of reason. And the closest we got, Genevieve, who I do think, generally speaking, is a pretty solid thinker. Her pettiness was interesting. I think she has the makings of like a Kim Spradlin character. But is she like popping on screen? No, and I think you kind of see that because for the first 3 episodes, the editors really had nothing to do with her because she's not just like, boom, no one's just like, when I talk, you want to listen, which is my only kind of like a little hesitation with the season. Otherwise, I do think it's a solid entry in the new era. Oeuvre.
Yeah. Like the thing, so Genevieve at first when she said Saul, I was kind of like, oh, that's weird. But as soon as she said it was because like the pettiness and she wanted to get revenge for Rome, I was like, okay, this is great. Like I'm here for it. So I liked that. But yeah, I feel like Saul really, he missed his opportunity to like do something with his game with Rachel. I feel like that could have been a turning point if he capitalized on it more. And I feel like obviously missing out on that was like a big miss for him. Oh, you're muted, Tegwyth.
Muted Tegwyth.
Muted. Sorry. What could have he done? What could have he done? Whatever.
What he done?
Thank you. Capitalize on that, because like I feel like if I'm Rachel, right, and this person stuck their neck out for me, yes, I would be inclined to do something for them. But if all of these people are wanting to go against him, and I am trying to I'm on the bottom, or at least it looks like I'm on the bottom. I'm trying to stay out of everything, and me playing an idol for this person that would be so huge. And then the other thing would be like, why didn't she give him the idol? Because then she doesn't get any credit. Because then at the end, if she gave him an idol and he played the idol and no one knew that she was a part of that, he could claim, hey, say they're sitting against each other. Mm-hmm. I got her to give this to me and she doesn't get any credit. And so like, what could she have done to what could he have done to capitalize on that? Because it just seems as if there's
he would have had to do it last vote with the Sam and Sierra thing. Like once that happened, it was out the window. Like I feel like he needed to bring her in on that, like let her know what was going on, and then from there. But like once that happened, I feel like he really it was done.
That's a great point. Because he did. I guess he squandered the opportunity to work with her because he saves her, but then he doesn't fill her in on a new plan, and then so that whole thing just fizzles out. Yeah.
I think you're completely right, Cara. That is the only step in which I feel like she'd be like, okay, I'm fine to stick my neck out for you.
Exactly.
And it's just very interesting because in Survivor, you saving somebody does not mean they're going to save you.
Right.
That's not what it is, because it's an individual game. And if it doesn't work for you individually, then, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. And I think Rachel, showed that. But the whole thing was very interesting. And I do also want to talk about Sam in this whole situation, because Sam was also left out of the vote, right? And we see him playing it very cool. Like, oh, guys, I'm all good. Like, everything's fine. But he's like, I don't want to work with Andy or Lavo, but he has to play it nice. Brian, you were in the game, right? If somebody comes to you, they were blindsided, and they come to you and they're like, everything's cool, everything's fine. Do you trust that? Or do you feel like there's something fishy about that?
You know what I just never hear enough of? And it's like the first thing on my mind is when someone's coming to you with that kind of mentality, the very first thing I think is, what is being said in this person's confessional? Because I know what you're saying to me, but this is a television show. The producers are goading you to say certain things. They want a storyline. There's obviously a confessional out there where you are clearly sitting talking to the producers saying, I'm going to tell them everything's cool, but I'm really out for revenge. Like, and that will never leave my mind, that idea that you're telling me this, but of course what the viewers have to be hearing is that you're seeking revenge. Like, there's no way that I believe this fully. I mean, I'll believe it if it benefits you, if this opportunity is all that's available to you. But do I think that this is anything further than an opportunistic relationship? At that point, no, of course not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because how I felt when he was talking about all of that was like, he is too cool with all of this. He is very chill. He's like, I'm cool. I don't care, whatever. And if I'm on the other side and I heard, like, we obviously heard Saul's confessional, but Saul was like, oh, it seems like he's cool with everything and everything is chill and everything's fine. If I'm Saul or if I'm somebody, I'm like, I don't know. He's playing it too cool. And to me, that's like, okay, you're out of here, because clearly you're a game player, because you don't have any huge feelings about this, and almost a averse feeling to all of that, to me, makes it seem like your threat level goes down, and I want to work with you and I want to keep you because I know how you'll react. But if you react as somebody who's like, everything's cool, I'm chill, I'm fine, I don't care that you blindsided me, that to me is almost like a red flag.
Well, and you've lived with each other long enough to be able to read each other's personalities at this point. And I mean, Sam seems like a pretty chill guy. Like, he hasn't had any bursts or, positive or negative, hasn't seemed like super high or super low. So there's probably a believability that Sam is like, I take it on the chin. It's a game. I get it. But, you still cast a kind of side eye. And again, like, we didn't see any of that from Saul. So this whole reaction of Saul just being so great, I'm like, I mean, Saul was a very mediocre player. Good guy. I like Saul in real life, but am I like rallying the troops to get Saul a returning, chance? I don't know.
We have a very important comment here from the one and the only Bruce. Bruce says it is a double-edged sword if you're too emotional. Cara, do you what do you think about that? Do you agree?
I agree, because I feel like if Sam after that was like going around like yelling at people, being super angry and vocal about it, like I feel like that, I don't know, I just feel like that's not something you like want to be around, someone you want to be around that's like angry and whatever. But like I don't know, but then it's like okay, like what are they going to do? Like what agency does Sam have now, So I don't know. It really is a double-edged sword, because you never know how people are going to react to how you're reacting. So you have to like read the room.
Well, then you got people like from Bruce's first season, Carolyn, who's probably the epitome of emotional, right? I don't know that we've had a player who is. I mean, you have to go back as far as like Sugar and Gabon. Who am I forgetting? Who was the last player who was? I mean, maybe Brandon Hance, but like really emotional players. They've actually gone. I mean, the three I named all made it to the finale. So, but then you've got people like Andy, right, breaking down on day 3, and then he recoups from it. But it really easily could have been him out on the first tribal council. So, too emotional being a double-edged sword. What's the positive there? The positive is that people will trust you because they know where your head is. They don't think you're hiding things, I guess. Like, it's easy. You're predictable in that you are emotional in a way. But the negative is like, who was it? It was someone who was actually, speaking of Philippines, maybe it was Jonathan Penner. Somebody in those mid-20 seasons was like, I'm just looking for predictable allies. And I do think that that's a boring game to watch, but the right game to play, which is why I'd have a very hard time working with Andy if I'm out there. And you see it with Rachel. Rachel strikes me as a really cerebral person. I think that she is logical. I don't think she's super emotional. I think she's got a good head on her shoulders. And her hesitation, this episode we see where she's like, he's a frustrating person to work with. I think what she means is he's unpredictable because he is emotional. And that's hard in an ally because you're looking for someone, what they're going to do. And you have faith that you can go to the end with them. So I don't know. I'd have a hard time working with someone who's too emotional, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just want to say Survivor 50 casting. This is why Brian should be on the season.
Oh, yeah, you guys are looking for 20 years ago, right? Like that's like a hot ticket item, isn't it?
No, Brian, I could listen to him talk like that like for hours. Mm-hmm. So good. He knows so much about this game. I love it. Okay. That's why I love having you on the show, because you just
I love being
so smart.
Oh, thank you, Jason Cox. Thank you.
I will say you brought up Andy. I didn't bring up Andy. I'm an Andy stan. I love Andy. But we got a very interesting edit from Andy at the beginning where he called himself a quote certified flipper. And he says he has to do some damage control with Sam and Rachel, and how and it was very interesting to see him like play this game with Sam and be like, hey man, I spent some social capital to try to keep you in. Like it was going to be you, but I made it so that it was Sierra and all of this stuff. And we got like a lot devoted to Andy at the beginning of the episode. Cara, how did you feel about that kind of edit for Andy or that segment for Andy? Because we also got a little bit of Andy and Rachel too.
Yeah.
How did you feel about all that?
And it was like flashbacks and stuff. Like that was a whole moment. Like, I mean, I feel like that can't be bad. Like, this has to mean something going forward for Andy, that he keeps getting these big scenes in each episode. And, like, I think we might have mentioned it last week, like, the Andy and Rachel conversation in, like, the first episode where he tried to talk to her and she was like, no. And then for it to be coming up again, I don't know. It's very interesting, Andy's whole story and where Rachel fits into it and if they're actually going to work together. I feel like they should, but
I mean, I wanted Rachel, Andy, Saul, and Genevieve to pull together a group and like work together. That has not happened, and now it can't because Saul is gone.
Because of Genevieve, by the way.
What?
Yeah.
Because of Genevieve. She was never
Because
gonna
of
lose Saul.
Genevieve.
She was just
Who
petty.
knew
She was like,
Genevieve?
yeah.
Who knew she was holding this vendetta against him this whole time?
So Brian, how do you feel about Andy's edit? I know we talk about the social game on this, but like Andy's edit is crazy because it goes from him having this breakdown in episode 1 to him having the George Costanza edit to him doing the crazy things at Challenge where he's like humping the pole or whatever. Yeah. And then, but then he also, it was crazy. And then this episode too, also, you're right. But then also he has these things where he talks about his game and we see his like strategy behind it all. Can you read between the lines of what's happening with his edit? Do you know more?
Having been on the show and knowing how these things work, my eyes really trained to like, who does the producer like? Who is the producer going to for narration? Who is the producer going to tell the story? It's whenever, for example, there's like a blindside or a fallout from a tribal council, it's always interesting to see whose perspective we hear from at the top of the episode. We heard a lot from Sam here, of course, and it took us like a hot minute to get to Rachel, which I thought was interesting because Rachel, when we did eventually, but right. I mean, Sam is blindsided because he's the one getting the votes and he was the pair with Sierra. So that I get it. It does make sense. And then we do get to Rachel, who played the shot in the dark, and her explanation for that. But there have been other kind of moments this season where things have happened. In the next episode, you're kind of waiting to hear from a person and you just don't. And I think so you get someone like, for example, Caroline, right? Who, much like Genevieve, seems to have and Rachel, have a really solid head on her shoulder. She doesn't seem emotional. She's always cheering for her opponents, right? Sue, you found an idol. Oh, Rachel, you placed that card so well, like epic. But you're not really getting a lot from her because I don't think the producers think that she pops as much. Again, I've said that before about maybe Genevieve a bit, but they love Andy and Sam is where I'm headed to this. Like they've gone to Rachel when they need to go to Rachel, right? She played the shot in the dark. She has an idol, right? But Sam gets a lot of unnecessary narration, and so does Andy. And Andy and Sam are, I think, the two best narrators for the season. When Andy speaks, he doesn't hesitate. There's not a lot of or he speaks well and he is passionate about it. So when the editors keep going to Andy, I don't know if it's because he makes it far or it's because they can rely on him to tell a story and to tell what's happening and to make it interesting and to throw in a metaphor, which these freaking editors love. And they like Sam because he even cried a little bit this episode because he felt like it was his time to win a challenge. So I'm not as great as predicting. Like some of the other survivors are really good at being like, oh, well, this is, Edgic and la la la, and this person's going to go far. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, it's just, I remember being at the finale, again, 20 freaking years ago at the finale. And one of the producers came up to me and he was like, oh, my wife and I were, watching the season. And she's like, God, you go to that guy a lot. And I was like, well, I'm a talker. Like that's what I do. I teach. My whole job, my life is like delivering information. So I know you went to me a lot. Like I know that you're going to feature me, even when I'm not necessary to the plot. I know you're going to feature me because I know I'm delivering for you. And I see that with Sam and I see that with Andy. And I'm like, I don't know if you go far. I mean, I didn't. But like
Justice for Ryan.
But like you like them. So like Caroline, I don't know. Does Caroline go far? Is she a middling player? Hard to know. She doesn't get a ton of it, which is unfortunate because I do think she's smart. Mm-hmm. I just don't think she's maybe super duper interesting, which isn't a ding. I mean, that sucks. If I were a contestant, I were listening to like a former contestant talk about me on a show and said they weren't interesting, I'd be like, oh my God, I hate this person. No, I don't hate any of these people. I think they're all great. They all deserve to be in the show. This is a great cast. But in terms of really being able to get an audience hooked, mm-hmm. Some of them just don't have it. That like X factor that's just like not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting hearing you talk about this because I think you're totally right in the sense of I think they're very good narrators. And the more I think about it, the more I think that like Andy is Carolyn. And I think you said this already, but like Andy is a person that we're seeing his strategy because he's saying it to us, because he's saying it in confessionals, and the producers like the confessionals. They like showing it. They like doing all this stuff. And if you go back to 44, Carolyn was giving us incredible confessionals, and she was saying why she did the things and how, and the like strategy behind it all. And then she goes to the end and she gets 0 votes. She gets 1 vote, whatever she got. And I feel like I could see that happening. And everyone, I'm seeing a lot of people online saying that Andy's a 0 vote finalist because he's getting a similar edit to Owen. And I think that is completely wrong. I don't think he's getting an edit like Owen. I think he's getting an edit like Carolyn, where it's kind of silly, kind of funny, kind of chaotic, and also incredibly smart. Exactly. Exactly. And I think that, but I will say, there are people who don't like Andy, and there are people who don't like Carolyn. So Ronnie says, TBH, Andy does irritate me a little bit. And that is, I feel like, this kind of narrator. The kind of person who we see a little bit of everything from. And I think that Andy's a very interesting person this season. And again, for everyone watching, they must know I'm very biased towards Andy because I love him. And I think he, I just think he's great just in general. And I just feel like it's very interesting, the edit we're seeing from him. And it's almost too obvious of a winner's edit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
We're getting hit over the head with Andy, and it's like, it can't be Andy.
I mean, it's clear why people wouldn't like Andy, right? Like that I get, because the kind of like hubris, like, haha, I got Annika, like, haha, I got Sierra, like, the kind of like trollish behavior that he does. I mean, I feel like I had some of that, so this is very much a glass stone. A glass house. I can't be throwing stones there, but like, yeah, I could see why people would be annoyed by Andy, particularly with the breakdown in episode 1. And sometimes you feel like when those players get too far, you feel like you should have been gone already. But Andy kind of did pull himself up on his bootstraps. He's reading the room. He's a little self-satisfied, yes. But he kind of articulated that in one of his confessionals recently, where he's just like, you can tell he's a Survivor fan. He's living on a Survivor. He says, it's like chef's kiss for a Survivor fan to be able to come out here and pull off a blind side and be able to like reroute your path from this breakdown on day 3 all the way to day 16.
Brian, how many days were you in the season?
I was in 15 days, by the way, which is as much as who this season, I guess. Where's
a lot of people.
Yeah, who actually, yeah. So
most of the merge.
Lest I sound actually Sierra was in for that long. In fact,
and for people who haven't seen Guatemala, Brian was robbed of the merge of the jury.
Swap effed. Still bitter.
Ohm says, I'm only here for Guatemala, Brian. Justice for Brian. The best.
Thank you. So
hey, if anybody has stands on the internet, it is Brian Corridan. That man, the internet loves him.
I love them. I love the internet. It was a very different time back in 2005, though. We did not have Twitter. We did not have Instagram. We had basically like, even Facebook was still like colleges. It was Survivor Sucks, that old website. That's what. That was the knife in the side of all of us back in the day.
Brian, you've only had one returnee from your season, right? And that's Danny from 40.
Well,
right?
Stephanie. I mean, if you consider Stephanie,
okay.
then yes. If you consider Palau, yes. Only Danny and Winners of War, which did
not go well. That's crazy because like your season has some icons.
I was texting with Amy 2 days ago. She reached out. She was just texting me. She's like, "Yo, what are you hearing about season 50?" And I was like, "Absolutely nothing because we are prejudged 2 years ago." But I mean, I'm obviously close with the whole Wine and Cheese. I don't know if your viewers know like the Wine and Cheese crew. So it's Steven and Eliza and Courtney and Sophie and Franny and Charlie, and we chat all the time. So that's how I'm very still ingrained in the Survivor world. But yeah, I mean, like Amy would be great. Judd, Amy, Rafe, like Jeff just came out with this thing on what was it? Maybe it was an Entertainment Weekly where he was just like, "We're looking for joy. We don't want like angry people." And then all of a sudden, people started like tweeting and posting, like Cindy from my season, which I get, like and Kobe from Palau. Everyone's just like, "Hey, Jeff, remember me?" I was like, guys, we have to have some humility here. Like, like no one is being like, who I really want to see? Like, they've got how many slots are they going to put on 50? Like 20 at max. Like, realistically, 15 of them are going to be from seasons 35 onward. We're not.
Recency bias sucks.
I know. Here's my pitch. I think like battle royale, battle of the seasons, man and woman from each of the first 49 seasons, like 98 players, or do 49 and 50, right? So like 49, like battle royale the first 20 seasons, and then like 50, like the winner of that season gets to play with all the new era folk, you know.
Ooh.
I love it. I love it. I mean, here, if you're on Survivor internet stuff and you do not see a second chances cast and Brian is not on that, he's on every single one. He's on every single second chance. And maybe it's me putting him on that. I don't care.
I'll take it. All I need is your vote. That's it. Yeah.
Bruce says I second that. So, let's just say. But I'm sorry, I got distracted by Brian talking again, as always. But it's just like so interesting to see, how these people will like play together, and obviously how it's going to like, convert into season 50, other seasons further on. And I think that you're completely right, Brian, in the sense that like, these edits are not super straightforward, and it's very interesting to watch. And let's jump to the challenge. Okay, let's go to the challenge, where I would love to hear your opinions on this kind of layout of the challenge, because we've seen this a couple of times. And Cara, I'll start with you. How do you feel about them splitting up into duos, and then the last two duos battle it out to get the immunity?
I actually kind of liked it. I thought it was fun. Like, I didn't mind it. I thought it was fun. I like seeing who pairs up with each other, and yeah, I like it. I think it's a fun twist on a competition.
Okay. Do you think there's any like strategy behind who they pair up with? I mean, we heard a little bit from Gabe and Kyle, but we really didn't hear a lot from like why Sam jumped on Andy. Like, that was interesting. We heard from Andy's perspective, but not really Sam's perspective.
I'm sure Sam was trying to build back that relationship any way he possibly could. That's what I would be thinking. But yeah.
Brian, how did you feel about this challenge?
Fine. Yeah, the challenge of the new era I'm not a hot take. I'm not the first, nor will I be the last to say. They feel very kind of redundant and sort of just reskinning of the same challenges over and over again. The element of having to pick your partner was interesting. The element of making them lose their votes, which I know a lot of people hate. I get it. But at least it gave a consequence to coming in last. I feel like there should be more consequences to being bad at challenges, rather than just rewarding those who are good at it. I actually felt like one idea for a season, if you want to kind of get out of this rut of just 3 tribes of 6 people with very few swaps, I feel like back when they did One World in 24, instead of 2 tribes, the idea I think would be like have it just be like individual challenges from the start. And then there's a set number of people who go to tribal council each week, and those are the people who do the worst in the challenge. Like, your penalty for losing the challenge is you go to tribal council. It is, right? Like, team challenges, the losing team goes to tribal, but now it's individual. And what that does too is it adds a layer of strategy, because if you have your alliance, do you all kind of throw the challenge so you can control the vote, but you're still putting yourself at risk if anyone flips? But do you put yourself in advance of the challenge and you win, but now that's one fewer person who's going to vote for your alliance? So you're kind of having to be a more fluid player, in that you don't really know who's going to be voting each night, because it's going to depend on the challenges. And if you diversify the challenges enough, you'll get enough mix of, okay, well, this one was purely cerebral, so now really physical players are going to tribal. This one was really physical, so now the players who can't hack it are going to tribal. And it makes it less, I think, alliance dependent, because you're not sending the same people. And that's, I think, what they're trying to do with this lose a vote. But I think it's more interesting if it's who goes to tribal council, at least for the first half of the game.
That is the best idea I have ever heard. That is, no. And here's the thing. I've always loved the One World twist. I think the One World twist is very interesting in the fact that, like, I actually, when people ask me what season would I want to be on, what season would I want to place myself on, I always say I would want to go on, because I think I'd be good at it. I think I would be good at it. I really think, like, obviously I would replace Kim, not because I would want to win, because I wouldn't want her to win. I'm not saying that, like, I need to get her out of there, but I genuinely think that, like, I would thrive in like a One World scenario. And I think it's actually a very interesting twist.
What do you mean? Like that everyone's on the one beach? Because it was still men versus women.
it was still man versus women, but I like the idea that everyone's on the same beach. And so you can actually see who's like creating bonds with other people on different groups.
Right.
And I just always found it very interesting. But what you're saying, I think, is an even better twist, because it's not just like the big brother of it where everyone's playing like the same way. It's like challenge that. I think that's super interesting. And I would love to see them switch it up like that, because that would be diabolical and amazing.
I think it makes it more interesting. You don't know who's going to travel each night, so you really have to play to that card you're dealt, and really weigh whether you want the safety of winning the challenge or if you want to have a say in the vote and therefore lose the challenge.
Yeah. I think it's genius. And I think that like this twist, for me personally, like I've never really enjoyed this twist specifically, because my big thing is like, if it's individual, make it individual. This is not an individual challenge. It's individual for 4 people.
Right.
And
that's a good point.
We're not guaranteed, like if all 9 people left in the game would have competed against each other, maybe Sue would have won. Maybe Genevieve would have won. Maybe Andy would have won. Right. We won't know because they weren't actually allowed to compete in the game. And I am not as mad at the losing of votes as other people. I don't love it.
I'm with you.
I didn't when I thought it was 4 people. When it ended up being 1 person, I was fine with it. But it's just like, I just want to see how people compete. And I don't really, at this point of the game, I don't really care what the other person is choosing, like who they're choosing, like unless it's for reward. I think that would be interesting. But like for individual immunity challenge, I would like to see people battle it out and like actually compete. But I will say, I think what you're saying, instead of like losing the vote, like having to go to tribal council early in the game, I think would be very compelling and very interesting, and add something very new to the game. And I would die.
I think, and we're mix up like the 3 tribes. Jeff, I know he likes smaller tribes because there's nowhere to hide. There's only 6 people. You can't hide in a tribe of 6 people. Like, I get it. But we've seen it now 7 seasons in a row. Mix it up, you know?
Yeah. They've only done One World once. Do it again. Cowards.
Yeah. Cowards is right.
Maybe that's a team for 50.
Yeah. Just just like
50 people, 1 island, no survivors.
It's just like 60 survivors from seasons 35 to 40, 35 to 49.
That is so funny. Well, I will say we did see 4 people lose their votes, quote unquote, lose their vote. Sam, Andy, Caroline, and Rachel. They all got out in the first round. Sue and Genevieve lost but didn't lose their votes. Then Teeny saw Kyle and Gabe made it to the end. They battled it out on the challenge that I want to try because I think I'd be very good at it because I wear heels a lot. I'm standing on my feet in heels for 12 hours a day. I could do that. Okay.
But the side of your like heel though, like your pinky heel, is that the same?
I believe it's not the same, but I believe that my feet have gone through enough that they can do it.
Okay.
Like, what if they just turn their feet? Like, I feel like their feet are like this. What if they turn them like toes on it? You know?
They do, but it's still like it's like that thin.
Teeny had a funny tweet. They said their toes. I guess there's different like styles of toes, Greek, Roman, whatever, depending on like how your toes. Like the heights of your, or I guess the lengths of your toes. So, you know, some people have biggest, like your big toe might be your longest toe, or for some people it's the toe next to your biggest. I guess it depends. And so Teeny, they said their feet are like the wrong kind to do that. So you don't have the right traction on the smallest bar there, which I was like, that's kind of funny.
I didn't know there was a right kind for this.
I know, right? Who knew?
Who knew? Teeny knew. It ended up that Gabe won. He fought it out with Kyle at the end. Kyle lost. I will say that last little bit looks like it was painted on. That last little bit, there was nothing there. That's
a tough challenge. That was a very hard challenge.
And Gabe did a little dance. That was very fun. He did like a...
What's that?
He dropped the necklace.
That? Okay, so I'm a cheerleader. and dropping the necklace, I had a visceral reaction because I grew up with spirit sticks.
Right. Can't touch the ground.
You don't let the spirit stick touch the ground. And I'm like, Gabe's curse. Gabe's curse. I'm sorry. Let the spirit stick touch the ground.
Gabe is the contestant that I'm most like, ugh, you're trying too hard, man. Like, he's like, I want to be on Mount Rushmore. What have you done? Why? For what purpose? Like, he just feels like he's such a pick-me. Like, I'm a villain. Are you? Okay. Fully uninterested.
I think going into a season wanting to be on the Mount Rushmore of the new era just ends up not being good for your game, because I think it's been much better than I thought for him in the grand scheme of things. But he really said at the beginning he wants to be on the Mount Rushmore of the new era, and I just think that set yourself up for failure, because like.
Well, it's also like show don't tell, buddy, but sure.
Exactly. You have to play the game that you're presented, like that you can, like what's in front of you, and trying to be a Suri, be a Boston Rob is not, but he did say he doesn't see himself in anybody because he is a new player, like, and I just think that that's a very hard way to approach the game.
Yeah, it has to just happen naturally. You can't just come in. Like, it just happens naturally.
Yeah. Jameson says, yes, very, that show don't tell. And the dance, I didn't hate the dance. I do feel like the dance was for somebody. It was very...
Well, then that's fair. If that's a message back home, that's totally fair. Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like you're totally right on the sense that, like, I don't know.
I think Tuku is kind of like... What is up with the four of them now? Like,
which four? The Chuku?
The Tuku, yeah. Like,
well, Sue hates Kyle. Gabe just loves himself. Yeah. Caroline is happy for anyone who's doing a great job. Excellent.
Caroline is what I strive to be. Caroline is so happy and so positive.
Caroline is so positive, and she's got such a cool, good attitude. It's just, is anyone going to like follow Caroline's charge to like a vote? Hard to know. Sue, maybe. Well, Sue in her confession. See, here's what's kind of embarrassing. It's like kind of like that meme where it's like, oh, this is so awkward. Is this awkward because I'm your best friend, but you're not my best friend? Like, that's how I feel with Sue and Caroline versus Gabe, because Caroline's like, I love Sue. She's like my mom. Like, we're super tight. We're a duo. And then in Sue's confessional, she's like, Gabe is my number one. And I'm like, Caroline, like. She's like, if Gabe's not here, I don't have anything. And people are like, well, what about Caroline? She's like, oh, right, Caroline, right. It's like,
it's true, yeah.
Keep like touting Gabe as your +1. And
we see like none of that relationship.
No, Gabe doesn't say anything about Sue back. Like, yeah.
We only see him saying like bad things about her. Yeah. We never see him like saying anything good about Sue.
And we just know Sue loves Gabe and hates Kyle. That's what we know. And I do think she likes Caroline. I'm not, Sue's actually been fairly quiet for the last 3 episodes. We haven't gotten a ton of confessionals from her across, basically since the merge happened. So where Sue's head is at is not clear, particularly regarding her allegiance to Gabe versus Caroline. For all we know, there's the cutting room floor saying like, Caroline's my number 1. But if Gabe goes, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, maybe that's being said, but my viewer perception right now is that Sue is sort of tethered to Gabe more so than to Caroline, and Caroline maybe doesn't get that.
Yeah.
In the past 4 episodes, it looks like Sue has only had 8 confessionals. 1 episode she had 0.
Yeah,
the past she had 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Like,
so 3 across the last 3.
And she was loving her at the beginning of the season. They have fallen off of Sue. Because it's just she's not getting the edit. And I've actually had people comment about Sue's game being like, I was really excited about Sue at the beginning of the season, but she's not giving what I was expecting. And I think that comes with being in a plush alliance. She is with 2 people she fully trusts and will fully protect. And like, I think being in a 3-person alliance in season 47 is actually pretty plush. It's actually lavish.
Not a ton of allegiance. And, with the wisdom of a 45-year-old. So,
Yes. Yes. Yes, of course. The oldest woman in the game, at 45. But it's very interesting because I really think that, like, we're gonna get a lot of her hating Kyle next episode, which you were like, teased a little bit, which I think we've been teased for the last couple of episodes. And I'm very interested to see how that, ends up turning out. But I just think that whole Tuku dynamic is very interesting. But speaking of Tuku, speaking of Kyle, I want to bring up something that was really shocking to me in this episode, which was Kyle said in a confessional that he, quote, doesn't think of Genevieve as a thinker, or Genevieve is not a thinker in the game. That moment was wild to me. And then it gets to Genevieve going, like, thinking, basically, like, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is what's happening. And she, like, makes the Saul vote happen with Sue and then with Gabe. And my question of all of this is, we are obviously seeing an edit of the game, right? Brian, what is it, like, what do you think somebody who is a thinker has to do to kind of portray themselves as somebody who's controlling the vote, or controlling at least a little bit, but not having too big of a target? Because honestly, right now, Genevieve not being seen as a thinker is probably a good thing. But at the end of the game, people could be like, hey, man, you didn't do anything. And she's like, no, I did so much. So what is that balance like?
Of course. I mean, we see that all the time. Fortunately for Genevieve, she's not seen as one of a duo. Oftentimes, those people are part of a duo with a flashier person who's their shield, and they look like a tag along, right? They look like they were dragged to the end by this flashier player when they're saying, no, I was actually in on those moves. Like, I generated a lot of those moves, but it's hard for the jury to see that because they're seeing the flashier player, right? So you've got your Boston Rob and your Amber, although that's a terrible example because she actually won. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like, so, or like a Jam and a Caroline, for example. Thank you, Anthony. So with sorry, I was distracted by the compliment. So what was I saying? Oh, it's on. For Genevieve, yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know what Kyle and Genevieve would have to talk about. So they didn't start in the same tribe. Genevieve's like a corporate lawyer.
Yep.
And Kyle is from
Canada.
And I don't know what he does. Yeah, that's shitty. Let me take that back. Kyle, forget about where people are from. Everyone can be smart no matter where you're from. But Genevieve is a corporate lawyer and Kyle is not. And so I don't know that they have a lot in common. I don't know that they have a lot to talk about. So I think when Kyle says, I don't think of Genevieve as a thinker, I think what that's game speak for is Genevieve and I have no working relationship strategically, so I have no idea where her head's at, and I don't know much about her at all. So and of course the editors were ready and waiting, right? As soon as Kyle says that, they cut directly to her plotting against Saul with Sue. But I just don't think of Kyle, actually, and this I think also speaks to why Kyle wasn't a giant target. I don't know that Kyle would be described as the most perceptive of players, perhaps. So I don't know that he knows how much Sue hates him, for example. So when Kyle is on a 3 immunity streak and loses and doesn't get a single vote, sometimes I think you could call that a testament to a player's social skills, that people are like, but I love him so much and he's part of my alliance and I want to keep him around. I don't think that's what was happening here. I think probably more likely what was happening here was, okay, he didn't win immunity, but this guy's not a threat to win, because I don't think people are going to want to vote to give him $1 million just because he won a bunch of challenges. I don't think he's got a bunch of relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. I made a TikTok earlier today about literally this, about how I feel like nowadays it's not even nowadays. It's just like being a physical threat is not in and of itself a threat. Like, if you are like truly, if you think back to like Joe Anglim or like even Ozzy, honestly, like these physical threats, were they very good socially? Definitely not Joe. Okay. No. And definitely not Joe. And like, just being good at the challenges is not a threat. But you think of like Tom from like Palau, right?
Yeah, he was a leader, right? He had the social stuff to back it up.
No, exactly. You know, you have something else, and it's not just the physicality. And I think, you know, episodes before I was saying, hey, when Kyle loses, you got to get him out. But clearly, there's nothing else. And this is not to be, I'm not trying to be mean to Kyle. It's just like there's nothing else these other players are seeing as a threat other than the fact that he's good at challenges. And that might not even be that bad of a thing when you like take into account like rewards. Like maybe you could be on his team for a reward.
Right.
There are things that you could use him for, and if he's not that big of a social person, not that big at strategy, then what is the harm in keeping him in?
Yeah, honestly, I'd argue across the 46 seasons that have aired in their entirety so far, I'm hard pressed to think of a single winner who played a purely physical game, right? I think you see plenty to make the finals. So you got like a Colby in Australian Outback comes in second. You got Ozzy in Cook Islands, he comes in second, right? You've got a person like Tom who was dominant, but Tom really led that tribe, right? So he had more than just the physical game.
What's the football player who's from Tampa?
Brad Culpepper?
Culpepper, he didn't win, obviously, but he played a physical game. And but similar to what you're saying, he lost. Like, you know?
Yeah, I was thinking of him. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I said this before, like, about Kyle. Like, he like, he's winning all these challenges, but he's not doing anything with it. And if he was doing something with winning these challenges, that would give him more, like, capital in the game, give him something to work off of and, you know, something to say in the end. But he's just not like doing much, and I feel like this episode kind of proved that he's not doing much there. But like he seems like a really nice guy, so I'm sure he's nice to have around. But like I'm not surprised that his name really wasn't like the name after him not winning.
Not actually a threat. He wins challenges, but you're like, but he's not going to win the game. Like even if he gets himself to final 3, what's his argument? I won a bunch of challenges. That's never won Survivor. No one has won Survivor arguing, I won a bunch of challenges, my story's over. Like,
we saw in season 43. Wasn't it 43, right? Gabler versus Cassidy versus Owen. Owen and Cassidy were the dominant challenge beasts, quote unquote.
Particularly Cassidy at the end there too, right? Yeah.
And they both won like 2 or 3 challenges each. Gabler only won 1. And like he didn't. So I did see somebody commented on their TikTok saying, Mike Holloway, I feel like Mike and Ben Driebergen are
that's
interesting. Those two, I think, are the exception to the rule. Maybe not so much Ben, because I feel like Chrissy won more than him, and he just kind of had the idols to.
Yeah, Ben was really like an idol player more than
he was an idol player. He wasn't a immunity idol player. He was a immunity necklace player. He was an immunity idol player.
But Mike, here's my argument for Mike. Mike was purely physical, but Mike's wins were critical wins. Like Kyle hasn't, these haven't been critical wins for Kyle. Yes. Right? Mike they were gunning for him each time, and he saved his own ass each time rather than just like cruising through in a majority alliance with immunity. And Mike was on the outs. Mike was trying to help Shireen. Mike was, I think it was part of the Tyler blind side. Mike had some moments, but I will say that Mike is a pretty good rebuttal to that argument. I do think that I can counter that a little bit with Mike, but that was an interesting poll. Yeah,
I think he's the closest to a fully physical winner that we have in Survivor.
I wouldn't count Ben though. Ben wasn't really physical. Again, Chrissy won most of those challenges.
Yeah, Chrissy was the physical threat. If the physical threat won, it would have been Chrissy. Like it would have.
Right.
Yeah. And I will say some people in the comments are also saying Fabio, but I don't know. Fabio was.
What was his? I'm going to look up Nicaragua on Wikipedia.
Fabio won a bunch, but he also was like, I don't know, Fabio. Like he was just like.
Basically, Malika draws a blunt on her vote for him, so like that wasn't because he was a challenge winner.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he won some stuff, but I will say. if we're talking about these challenge beasts, Chrissy is the one person. The winner deserves to win. I agree with what I say all the time. Blah blah blah. Whatever. Chrissy, I would have loved to won that season. That's who I would have loved to win that season. Like Chrissy is the person.
Fabio did win 4 immunity challenges. Though.
Yeah, he won a lot. He did win a lot, but he was also, I don't know, Fabio. You know.
Okay, all right. There's some solid counter arguments, but
2 out of 46 is not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, that's people win because of strategy or their social acumen.
Yeah.
It's not usually because of their physical ability. Oh. And I think people forget about it, including myself. I forget that, and I go, "We gotta get Kyle. Time to get Kyle." And it's like,
well, it's like people with women's alliances, right? Like, there's a women's alliance brewing. It's like, is there? Does that ever happen? It happened like once famously, and now no one is. Now we can't have women president because of it. So like,
now I know. I will say it's happened twice. One World. We're bringing up One World again.
Oh, right. Wow. Who knew this was going to turn into a One World retrospective? Jeez.
That just reminds me that the Women's Alliance died on this season. Like, they haven't even brought it up again.
It's because they like to use the idea of a Women's Alliance as like a plot point. And then it hurts women's alliances in the future. Even if they talk about it, you don't have to bring it up, editors. You can drop it.
Yeah. They
it doesn't work. Just don't talk about it. It's okay. It's okay. Oh my God. I will say though,
the episode they brought it up in was the one Tiana went home in. So that was kind of crazy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It was diabolical. Honestly. I will say this was a crazy episode, and we haven't really talked about the chaos at the end of the episode. And let's talk about that really quickly, because Sam did stir some chaos. So Rachel goes to Sam and is like, "Don't tell anybody. Don't even vote this way, but it's got to be Saul."
Yeah.
Less words than that, because she didn't say any words. She just nodded. She was like, and Sam literally immediately, I mean, could not have been a closer segment, goes to Saul and goes, "Hey babe, it's you."
Yeah.
And you see the chaos coming from that. Now, I think this chaos benefited one person and one person only, and that person was Sam. And he had his name thrown out for very briefly when they went to the reward. And after this chaos started, Sam's name did not come up one more time. Now, did I ever think it was going to be Sam? Probably not. But the fact that Sam was not involved at all, it was either going to be Sue, Kyle, or Saul. I think that this chaos was purposeful on Sam to a degree. And I would love to know to hear your thoughts on this.
Can I tell you why I knew it wasn't going to be Sam or Genevieve? Not that she was on the table. So again, pay attention to the edit. They're clearly discussing the vote in dusk, right? Or right, dusk, the end of the day, dusk morning.
Yeah. No, dusk.
I was like twilight, dusk. So anyway, all this to say, there were plenty of confessionals that were discussing that action, but the backdrop was broad daylight. So those had to have occurred the next day. So there were several confessionals, particularly you'll see it most obviously with Genevieve. I rewatched the episode before this to prep. So most obviously you'll see with Genevieve, but it happens with several other contestants where they're talking about the chaos, the pre-tribal council chaos, but they're talking about it in broad daylight, in full sunshine. And I'm like, oh, well, this has to have occurred the next day. So you obviously survived the night, because obviously if you had gone home, you wouldn't be giving this confessional from the beach in broad daylight the next day. So I was paying attention. I was like, oh, and Sam had one of them. I think Sue had one of them. Yeah. And the only confessionals we got from Saul discussing the action are in the jungle. So you don't actually see the sun. You don't see the blue sky there. So pay attention to these subtle clues, viewers. You can see oh, these confessionals actually happened the next day.
That's cool. That's a cool thing to look out for.
Yeah, see, Jameson Cox noticed it. Yeah.
Jameson's always on it. Cara, did you notice this, or how did you feel about this kind of chaos at the before the Tribal Council?
I didn't notice that, but I'm definitely going to be looking out for that in the next episodes, because that's interesting. But so not thinking of that and pretending I didn't know about this, I was actually I found it kind of risky for Sam to immediately go and do this chaos thing that he did because I felt like I don't know, I felt like he wasn't, like, safe, like, I feel like it could have been really easy for them to be like, "Sam's causing chaos, let's just vote him out and we'll be done with that." I feel like that could have been an easy thing, you know, for them to just easily flip it back onto Sam, and I don't know, I thought that was a little risky for him. I mean, obviously, I don't it obviously worked out for him, like, he survived, his name wasn't out there even in the end, like, still at the tribal, like, they still were saying, like, Kyle and Sue or whatever. So, yeah, I thought it was risky, but I guess no one else thought it was a weird thing for him to do, so good for him.
I will I will also say, like, it was kind of a tall order for Rachel to be like, "I'm giving you this information, don't tell anybody. Also, vote
Yeah.
the wrong way." Like, telling all of that to Sam is kind of a wild thing to tell an individual person who's trying to play a good game of Survivor. Like, and as much as you wanna stay safe, if somebody says, "Hey, vote wrong tonight, and here's what's happening, it's right," and it's not a split vote, I just want you to look like you don't know what's going on, like, that's kind of a very big thing to ask of somebody, and
Absolutely. Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like,
Of course,
I
I'd be so
don't think
salty.
like I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it.
No way, salty as hell. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a weird spot Rachel was in because like, she had the information, she didn't know she could trust Sam with it, she didn't know, like, what really to do with that, and I feel like I don't know what she could have done in that situation besides just lie to him and not tell him anything that could have made it better for her.
Yeah, and
I
then you
guess
did
lying
have
would have been the best, right?
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
and then he would have been mad come the next round, but
Right.
But if she really did wanna work with Sam in the future, then that bridge is burned.
Does any
yeah.
bridge ever burned in the new era? I feel like
That
there's
is true,
everything's
though.
so
I
like
don't know.
everything fluctuates. Your new alliance, it's like the Cambodia voting blocks, right? You're just getting through this vote with
Yeah.
whatever group is
Mhm.
available.
You're probably right. I will say, though, I think in the
Yeah.
new era, sometimes the the things that you do against somebody stay a little bit longer because of the fact that there's no downtime. And so sometimes I feel like people can stay bitter a little bit longer than expected. I feel like this episode is an example because in this episode, Genevieve goes after Saul for something that happened like 3 episodes ago.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I feel like back in the day, that wouldn't happen so much. Like 3 episodes is a long time to hold a vendetta. That would be like, I don't know, 6 days, 5 days. And in the new era, in the olden days, it would have been like 10 days.
Right.
And I feel like 10 days is a lot
Yeah.
of a better time to get over something than
Yeah.
like 5 days.
Mhm.
And so, like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes if you burn somebody in the wrong way, it could really be bad for you. It doesn't happen that often, but it's something
Mhm.
I'm always worried about because it's just like there's no time to
Right.
like get over something.
Yeah. Even, like, Sue is still mad at Kyle, and we
Oh,
still
yeah.
going into the next episode, like,
Right.
she's still mad about it,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
So I don't know. I'm very interested to see where these relationships go in the future. I don't really feel like I see a lot of a future with Sue, like not Sue, Sam and Rachel. I feel like that's like maybe done because of what happened. I really just feel like there is so much fluctuation happening this season that it's like very hard to actually accurately guess what's going to happen because so much is going on.
Yeah, it feels like the tightest 3 are Gabe, Sue, and Caroline.
Yep. And I feel like people are starting to notice that.
I feel like
Maybe.
they're
Because
not
they
even
wanted
trying
to
to
go after
hide it, like,
no, but yeah,
'cause they're like
that's true. They wanted to go after Sue and it didn't work, and they're like, "Why didn't it work?" Well, we gotta go after one of them.
well,
Question in the
they
chat,
even
speaking
say, like, if we get Gabe, like, we have the rest of Tuku, like,
Mhm.
I think maybe
Yeah.
Genevieve even said that in the episode, so
Yes, you're right. Yes, she was like,
yeah.
"Gabe is the one who controls Tuku," she said, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Teeny and Genevieve. Well, Genevieve noted she was going to burn the bridge. Teeny obviously went along with the vote because you have to vote with the majority. I mean, Teeny saw where the votes were going. Like, of course, you just kind of have to.
Yeah.
At that point, what are you going to do? Like a protest vote? What good does the protest vote do you? But I don't know that. I don't know that the blame or the credit, for that matter, is going to Genevieve publicly.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I
know
guess
that
Gabe
he-
did say like this was her. Like,
Yeah, Gabe
he
did
pointed that
say,
out.
what did he say? He literally said, this is all her, but only to Kyle.
That's the thing. How much of
Yeah.
that it gets back to Teeny is the question.
I don't think that would.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Probably
think
not.
Look at you. Cheers.
Cheers. Well, we do have some questions that were sent in before the episode, but before we get to that and before we get to our commercial break, is there anything else that either of you guys want to cover that we didn't talk about with this episode? Any moments that you loved? Anything else you want to make sure we talk about before we get to the commercial?
No, I think we covered it, right?
Maybe
Amazing.
like the challenge that they did when they went on the
Yes, the reverse Jenga.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
I didn't hate it. I thought it was fun.
I mean, it's very like, it was a little reminiscent of speaking of Chrissy and Ben. God, we're talking about like the lamest season. One World and Heroes, Hustlers, Steelers. God, guys. But
we're very topical. We love talking about the hot topics.
all the highlights of the Survivor franchise. But there was that like one season where they had the loved ones visit in 35, and it was just like pick a ball from a bag. If you have the same color, it's like, so here it's just like Jenga, but don't say Jenga. Okay, fine. Was it compelling TV? No, I mean the one thing with the Rachel was pretty interesting, but
yeah.
I will say I'm happy that only one person lost their vote. So however that happened, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then a lot of people I've been seeing talking about how Sierra seems so bitter coming out on the jury bench.
Good for her.
Good for her. And also the walkout, guys. Did you guys notice this? We got a walkout. Very big deal. Very excited about that personally.
It was a good moment.
Great moment. She looked incredible. She deserved that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Killer. I love that. Well, we are still going to talk about the episode. We do have some questions we want to get to. If you want to send in some questions before we get to the commercial, please, the chats are open. We would love to hear your questions. We'll answer them. But we will be right back after this incredible ad.
What's up, guys? I'm Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China, and I am here with Survivor Now podcast, the best source for Survivor information, to show off what I do for a living. So I make custom Funko Pops. If you haven't seen or heard, you can check it out on Instagram at Todd's Pop Shop, or you can message me, toddspopshop@gmail.com, to order your own. And if you mention this podcast, you will get $10 off and a free torch. So it's pretty freaking awesome. I'm going to show you a few right now. We've got Troyzan here, Phil from The Amazing Race, JLP, host of Australian Survivor, and look, little Charlie. Anybody you could possibly imagine or want yourself playing an LRG or an ORG, or just with your loved one or family or pets or anything like that, shoot me a message. I'm happy to make it. You also have the chance to win a free custom pop if you sign up for Survivor Now Podcast Fantasy League. So it's pretty awesome. And it's fun. Like, who doesn't want to be a part of that? So yeah, hit me up, get your custom pops. It's great holiday gifts, great birthday gifts. We got a new season of Survivor right around the corner. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. Let's get this going.
Incredible. Love the Todd's Pop Shop. It's my favorite commercial. All right, let's start with some questions that were sent in. We got this one literally just now, but I think it's a good way to start it off. Benale? Yeah. Who is Brian's winner pick? Brian, who is your winner pick for the season?
I feel like edit-wise, we're going Sam. Logic-wise, I just don't see it being Gabe. I just don't think anyone wants to vote for him. Sue and Caroline are under-edited. Could it be Genevieve? Not getting enough credit. Rachel? I'm going to say Sam. You know what? I'm going to take Sam. Mm-hmm.
I saw somebody post something early at the beginning of this season saying that the whole Nashville beach drop and having it in Nashville to begin with was because Sam was the winner. And I was like, that's a very hot take. And I love
Is he
it.
from Nashville? I didn't know that.
He lives in Nashville right now.
Oh, okay.
He's not from there, but he lives there now. Kara, remind
That's interesting.
yeah, I know, right? Remind the people who your winner pick was, Kara, or is.
Okay, my winner pick was Sierra. Unfortunately, she's gone. So now I'm moving on. I'm moving down my draft line. So now my new winner pick is Andy.
Yes, I love that. Incredible. 2 great winner picks. Mine's Teeny.
I kind of forgot about Teeny, which is terrible.
No, but that means that it's not. I don't think they're winning, but they're my winner pick, and preseason winner pick. I stand by it.
Teeny is adaptable, right? Teeny knows where to go, but Teeny has never had the power to effect change in the game, right?
Yeah.
Teeny loses Keyshawn. Teeny loses. Teeny wanted Sam out, didn't they?
Yep.
And then
Teeny never gets their way.
Teeny doesn't, and but we do hear enough from Teeny. Although I did totally forget they were there.
Teeny's giving 0 vote finalists. Teeny is giving Ben. Teeny is giving like Owen a little bit, not because they're like derpy, but because it's like they're there. We always hear their perspective, and we always kind of like they're upset about the vote, and it's giving Ben. It's giving.
I was gonna say Ben. It's not. Yeah. It's not Owen, right? Owen was like Charlie Brown.
Yeah, yeah.
Teeny's not like Charlie Brown. Teeny's maybe like Ben, kind of like rootable, and you like this person, but did they do anything really? Yeah.
I could see Teeny being a 0 vote finalist way easier than I can Andy.
Yeah, I've seen people comparing Teeny to Jake, like how they wanted something but it never goes their way, like that in that type of sense.
But we still hear why. We still get an idea of why they wanted it, or they're upset about it, or whatever. And I feel like that is giving 0 vote or very low vote finalists 3rd place. And I would be, Owen was my preseason winner pick. Was very happy with that. Making it to the end is a good spot. So if I'm right, I would be happy with that. You can't always get the winner. Ryan picked Kenzie last week, and he'll never let me live that down. We had this question. This was sent in by another podcaster.
Hey, Blake. Oh God.
Okay. What? Okay, wait. What is this question? What you think is an underutilized strategy for Survivor, given your bigger moves in Guatemala was like the bait Blake strategy, something we haven't seen since?
Yeah, I'm gonna hang my hat on that. We don't get a lot of bait Blake strategies. We don't get that was me. That was I'm trying to think. I was like, do we have a lot of references to people on the show across 47 seasons furthering their own game by intentionally making someone else dig their own hole?
That's a Brian Corridan original, babe.
That is a me. Oh, Guatemala. It is an underutilized strategy. It's a great strategy, especially if you're on the outs. I mean, actually going back to before when I was saying how I knew kind of the producers would come to me. There was a time when the producers called Bobby John over one time, and he came back within 10 minutes. And we were like, hey, that was a fast confessional. And Bobby was like, oh, I couldn't string words together, and the producers just told me to go back to camp, right? Because he just wasn't, bless his heart. I wouldn't call him the most articulate human being, but with the Blake vote out, the famed lore of the Blake vote out in Guatemala is that it aided him into talking about himself, and it turned everyone off. When reality behind the scenes, of course, was that Gary and Amy basically had sold me upstream. And they were like, let's get rid of Blake first. Let me get rid of Brian later. Although I'll take credit for at least them wanting to get rid of someone else before me. But when I got voted out and then Amy gets voted out right after me, and, whenever someone gets voted out in Survivor, the subsequent vote outs, you fill them in on what had happened. Like, why did I get voted out? Fill me in on what happened. And so Amy filled me in and told me the whole thing. And when she told me, she was just like, yeah, well, basically Gary and I kind of made a deal with Danny and Brandon and said, we'll stick with you guys. Let's get rid of Blake first, then Brian's expendable later. And I remember just it was yesterday saying to Amy at Ponderosa, I was like, oh, that's definitely not how that story is going to get told on TV. Just heads up. And she's like, well, that's what happened. I was like, no, you sweet summer child. I get that that's what happened. That's not how it's going to be told on television. What's going to be told on television is that I like kind of got Blake to look like an asshole. And that's of course how it plays out, because you have to think. That's why I'm like, I just can't have someone come to me and tell me, oh no, that blind side, no problem, we're all cool. Because my mind will immediately go to, well, what's being portrayed on TV? Because what's being portrayed on TV is not like, well, I'm totally taking it on the chin that I just got blindsided and I'm going right back to those guys and making good. Like, no, what's being told on TV is that you're pissed and you're going to like lie to us and get revenge on us. So yeah, for Amy to be like, oh, we sold you out to Danny. I was like, okay, that might have been what happened, but it's definitely not going to be like the Survivor lore. Like, that's just not how it's going to play out. So was there a point to all this? Oh yeah. So underneath our strategy, yeah, making somebody else look bad is the producers love that, and no one does it. Yeah.
So I just want to say, follow up to this. When we went to commercial, whatever, if you guys don't know, Ryan, my partner, he got me into Survivor. He loves Survivor. And Ryan also loves Brian. And when this all went, whatever, we went here, I was like, hey, send me a question for this, because I think it'd be fun for you to have a question during this moment. And literally seconds before I say this question out loud, Ryan sends in this question. Brian famously used the big Blake strategy. But he did have a question behind it. Which contestants of the new era does he think it would work best on? And why is it Rome?
Oh my God. Also, shout out to Eleanor in the chat. I see your chats. Love it. Why? Yeah, Rome. Well, yeah, did anyone try to do this with Rome? Like, it feels like
Rome just was Rome, I think.
There have been so many contestants lately that I would be like baiting all day, every day, if I were out there with them, because they're just so hubristic. They're just so narcissistic. They just want to talk about themselves. And it's so off-putting. And if you can just, there's a lot to be said for your day-to-day on Survivor. I can't speak to the pace of the new era. I don't know that pace, but I'll speak to my experience, which was the slow pace of the old era. And you would have days when there were no challenges. You'd have days when there were no tribal councils. So you had this whole sun up to sundown period just to get to know each other. And grading personalities were a real problem, because you're exhausted, you're tired, you're hungry, you're bug bitten, you're not sleeping, it's raining on you. Any number of maladies are occurring. And you don't need, on top of all that, a really annoying person grating on your nerves. So that was a strategy. Maybe it's not a valid strategy anymore. Maybe the game's just too fast paced and it's just easier to overlook that these days. I don't know.
People forgot it. That's what's happening. And you know what? When I'm on season 49 of Survivor, I'm bringing it back, baby.
I'll watch for it. I'm looking for it.
I love it. No, because I feel like there are people nowadays you could definitely bait. But here's the I think this is what you were saying. I will say though, how much I feel like people can put up with a lot more, because I do think they're more comfortable. You're right. Guatemala is famously one of the hardest seasons where, it's hot. You're not allowed to get into the water. You took a 14-mile hike in the middle of the night to start everything off. You're miserable. And now they're in Fiji, and Fiji is pretty comfortable comparatively. And, the bugs aren't as bad. It's hot and it's cold, but it's not like the
You have reprieve. You have the water. Yeah, at least.
Exactly. You have the water. And also they're no longer filming it during the monsoon season. So it's not even like that rainy anymore. It's like now kind of nice and temperate. And so like when you have those conditions working for you, basically they're working for everybody now. Right. I feel like people are able to put up with a lot more.
Yeah. Maybe. And I guess new era is just easier.
Yeah.
Oh, they hate us. Yeah.
I mean, Guatemala is, I think people who are on Guatemala can.
Yeah, I feel like I look, you can't argue with me about hard Survivor.
Yeah.
Like Guatemala.
Guatemala is the hardest one. And I
want to hear from our Africa and maybe Cambodia.
I was literally Yeah. Guatemala is rough. Africa, the water source was, not great.
Africa, I'll take shit from Africa. I'm not taking shit from anyone else.
No. Guatemala was a whole different story over there. We did get another question in the comment from Emily. I love Emily. She's a great TikToker. If you guys
Oh,
go follow her.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually her first season that she's watched live.
Oh, wow.
In a while. She's very into Big Brother and she's getting back into Survivor.
Okay.
So
did Suri do that? Did Suri pull in viewers?
Emily, was it Suri? But Emily did ask, who would each of you most like to see back on for Survivor 50? And there are obviously a lot of people you could choose from. Let's limit it to 2 per person.
Okay. Are we talking about from like 1 to 47?
Yeah, anybody. I would just say anybody. I would say let's do 1 person new era, 1 person not. And obviously
I was going to say Shane and T-Bird. Okay.
Oh, then don't. Wait, no, then don't. Then do that. Just say Shane and T-Bird.
T-Bird.
Amazing. I love that. Really good people. I think those are Shane. I mean, he's funny.
Well, look, okay. I'm just saying that because they lost famously the second chance vote. Are they actually my pick? I think like justice for them because they should have been on second chances. Do I need them on 50? I don't know.
I would like to see T-Bird on 50.
So here's the thing. T-Bird is amazing and like an icon, and no question. She's just like RHAP. She's just like the best. Everyone loves her. Would she be strategic? I don't. You know what? Maybe. But I mean, like realistically, I'll pick like your Survivor boyfriend, Christian, and I'd love to see Christian back because I do think he's a good Survivor player. I think he's smart. And woman, Angelina. You know what? Both from that season. I'd love to see Angelina and Christian come back.
Amazing choices. Cara, do you have 2?
I feel like this question came and like every Survivor player just like vanished from my mind. I feel like I'm put on the spot. But you know what? I would want to see Todd back. You know?
Yeah, great pick. Mm-hmm.
I feel like he should come back. And for a girl,
it's hard. There are so many to choose from.
It is.
I feel like would you want somebody social? Would you want somebody a little bit more strategic? Or both?
Amanda twice.
Everyone in the comments are saying
like,
Amanda.
I would want like a social person. I feel like that's the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda's good.
Amanda? I am not saying this.
I feel like she came back so many times, right?
But not in a while. She fell off the face of the earth for a while.
But you know, she resurfaced in like a photo shoot for some sort of print magazine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Big news.
Come back to me.
Okay. I will say, and can I just be completely honest with you guys? I'm not saying this because of anybody in this chat or anything at all. My number 1 is Brian. I'm sorry. I have said this before. I've said this.
You dirty liar.
I'm not lying. I swear to God. I swear on my bunny's grave. And that is a big deal. I swear on my dog, my childhood dog, Delwyn's grave. My number 1 has always either been Brian or Todd. And Todd has already been said. So Brian is my number 2. Am I biased because I know him in real life? Yes, absolutely. I don't give a shit. Okay. He would be great. And the reason why we're friends is because I recognized him in real life. But because he was good on Survivor, he made an impression. And I was like, man, he was good. Robbed Goddess. Bring back Brian 2025.
I would love to play Survivor again. I would play in a heartbeat. I'm just so far off their radar. But
I know. If I yell about it loud enough, maybe you'll be back on it.
Their loss. I'm great. So that's on them.
Blood versus water. Brian and Kevin. Make it happen. Okay. No, but Brian, I'm dead serious. I've always said Brian, and I will say it again. I think he's incredible. We've talked about his strategy before. I think it's smart. It's funny. He's great TV. He's great to listen to. I swear it's not because he's on here. I would answer it the same way if it was somebody else.
Makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And then honestly, we haven't said a new era person. I would love to see Franny on 50. I love Franny.
Oh yeah.
I think Franny's really smart. I think that she
thrown that challenge.
Yeah. And I think that like her on a season where she doesn't have a potential love interest, I think would be very interesting. And I think that like she would have some really great strategy, and I would love it. I think that she would be really, really good. And so that's somebody I would love to see on 50. Obviously, I have other people like Vesepia, I would love to see on 50. Sean Rector, I would love to see on 50.
Yes, absolutely. Sean Rector for sure.
You know, like there are some really great people, but those are the two that are coming to front of mind right now. Cara, do you have a woman yet? No pressure. You can come to it later.
I don't know. The person that keeps coming to my mind is, well, the two people. Like Shannon and Ricard were two people that like stuck out to me from their season, and I don't know, they were like the first ones that came to my mind besides Todd.
They feel like kind of lockish, right? Like they'd be very obvious picks from 41 for sure.
Yeah, and if they're willing to come back, because Shan kind of has a lot of followers on TikTok, and obviously that doesn't mean that she's not going to come back, but like, you know,
everyone is willing to come back.
Maybe not Kenzie. I think Kenzie's the one person that doesn't.
She's a kid. She's a baby.
I know. Yeah. Everybody did it.
That's true. And I guess if you've won, you may have a lot less incentive to come back. You know.
Yeah, that's true. You have a million less reasons.
A million reasons not to come back.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you know, I feel you got to give yourself time. Like Sandra gave herself a lot of time, and then she came back and won again. If she came back in like All Stars or like even fans versus favorites, maybe it wouldn't have been enough time. You know what I mean?
Oh, Natalie's sister Nadia, back from Amazing Race.
Incredible. I would also love Natalie to come back. I love Natalie. Natalie is one of my favorite winners ever. But I didn't love her on 40, but I love her on season.
Like I feel like what I don't need is a player I've seen play multiple times, certainly not recently. So, you know, it's like Amanda. I mean, the last time we saw Amanda was Heroes Villain. So that was a long time ago. So, you know, maybe there's an interest in Amanda. I don't need to see anybody who was on 40. Nothing.
No. Do you know who I don't need to see? This is a hot take, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I don't need to see Sari. I love her. I love her.
I get it.
I love her. Yeah. She was on Snake in the Grass. She was on Traders. She was on Big Brother, and good for her. Go get it. I'm so proud of her, and I would love for her to win Survivor, but I don't need it for 50. I actually don't want it for 50. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah,
and I think there are people for whom that spot is better suited.
Yes. Yeah. I've said I don't want Boston Rob. I don't want Parvati. I don't want Sandra. I don't want Todd, and I don't want not Todd. Sorry, Tony. The T, another T winner.
Yeah,
Tony, and I don't want Sari. You know, who I would love to have back. Hot take, Judd. Either Judds. Sorry,
Fabio or
Fabio. Yes, I would be fine with either of them. I call Fabio Judd. I don't know why I do.
So Sophie was at a Survivor Bar trivia up in like outside Boston with Charlie from last season, and Evie and Jake, right? And she sent a photo to the one Cheese Chat where there was a trivia question that said like fill in the blank, like Guatemala quote, like I hope you all get eaten by a freaking blank. Only Jake knew it. Sophie knew it. I assume Sophie knew it. But she said neither Charlie nor Evie knew it. And I'm like, dead to me. Both dead to me.
It's the best quote in Survivor. And I'll fight you on.
I hope you don't get eaten by a freaking blank and you don't know the blank. Like, look.
Doesn't he say scumbag at the end?
Oh, yeah, after Crocodile. The blank is
I know. Like, was that not a part of the quote? It's
no. The quote was just the answer was Crocodile. But then you say, you're all a bunch of scumbags. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. It's so good. It's one of my favorite moments of Survivor, period.
that was a blindside, yeah.
Because it's also so brutal. Because it's like so topical to what was happening. Because it was a real threat. Like
incorporating the location, the unique location we were in. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, so good. Wow. Well, good on Jake for getting that right. Bad on everyone else for not getting it right.
Come on, guys. Yeah.
Charlie, Evie, get it together.
You're both very smart people.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, iconic. Oh my gosh. I love Judd is a person I would love to meet. Just
have you not met Judd?
No.
He used to work at the Wellington Hotel up on.
I have walked past there a couple times and been like, I wonder if Judd's.
It's closed now, though. It shut down. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Maybe I've been walking past someplace.
It's just north of Times Square. It's like between Times Square and Central Park on 7th Avenue, maybe 8th. Yeah.
Walking past someplace else, I go, oh, what's Judd's here? I'm just walking past somebody's home.
Yeah.
No, okay. That's so funny. All right. Well, we've got some good returnees for 50. We've got some. I don't know. This is a question that was sent in. I don't know if I want to ask it because it's kind of like a spoiler a little bit, or maybe not a spoiler. Have you guys heard of Rome's boot list?
No.
Okay. So I'm not going to bring it up. Don't look it up.
Okay.
It may be a spoiler. I think I maybe shouldn't have said anything about it.
Like Rome from the season?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm definitely going to look it up.
I don't think it's true, personally.
Okay.
Apparently, in an exit interview, Rome had a thing where he said a list of people, and the list of people went in the order where he said Sierra, and then he said Saul. And so people are thinking that he inadvertently said the boot order
He
of
leaked
it? And I don't know. So Marissa asked this, and my big thing, I'm not going to look it up because even if there is a ounce of possibility that it's true.
My Survivor Fantasy League is going to be very upset that I heard about this. I'm going to have to tell them, so I'm full disclosure.
But I don't think
that's kind of crazy.
I don't think it's true because I think that like producers listen into exit interviews. Yeah, and I think that they would have noticed that. And I think
they would have got to take it down.
Well, still even know, because honestly, a lot of the people who are doing the boot list or the exit interviews, they're contestant handlers. I guess they know the full boot list, but there's also there is a world of possibility where all they know is who they have to coordinate with, like the following week. So the person who's in charge of like safeguarding or chaperoning these interviews, I don't know that they know the whole season's layout. I mean, presumably they. I don't know that they need to. It depends on what the need to know basis is, because the way these work is you just do your interviews, I guess these days via phone or via Zoom, right? But if you're a contestant coordinator, you don't need, if the powers that be don't need to give you more information other than like, here's when you need to work, and we'll send you the contestant when they get voted out.
Yeah.
Like they don't, I don't know how much advance notice they have with the boot list. So if that's something that Rome did, I'm not sure it would have been flagged by the right people.
Interesting. I heard about this earlier today. I do not want to know, so I'm not looking it up at all because I love the mystery of it all. I love like guessing and being wrong. Like there's nothing I love more than like being wrong, because I know it sounds silly, but I think it's like very, it keeps you on your toes. I like being right sometimes too. It helps once in a while, but I think it keeps you on your toes. But
I'm not going to look. I want to, but I won't.
Ryan told me about it earlier today. He hasn't looked it up. I haven't looked it up. I don't really want to know.
Yeah, Fantasy League players, I don't know about it. I'm not looking it up. I swear. I promise.
But like, why would he do that? Like, wouldn't he want to like potentially come back on another season?
If it were true, I think it would be an accident, because I think he'd be like listing out people and he'd just be going blah 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 blah, and he'd just be going through. And I don't think it would be like something he would be thinking about. And honestly, I don't think it's true. I think it was an accident. I think the first two is like
And then he like switched it up as he went on.
I'm just gonna shout out my friend Teddy, because I'm definitely gonna hear about this from her. So.
It's a very interesting thing that I don't think is real. I am I'm a nay conspiracy theorist. I only like conspiracy theories when I come up with them.
Yeah, Rome can do no wrong.
Yeah, exactly. He was on my team. My team is perfect.
What do we think of his chances of taking over Charlie on the Podcast on Fire thing next season? Not
maybe
I don't think if he spoiled anything, I definitely.
Well, that's true. If he did this, then forget it. But like even without that, like Rome, he got a ton of confessionals. He was out like 6th.
He was, that is true, but I do think that there is a perspective that people gain when they're on the jury. And I think that they're trying to get people who have the full perspective of Survivor. And I don't think that means going to the final three. I don't think you need to go to the final three in order to have that kind of thing. But I do think that they want somebody who can talk about, especially in the new era, what's going on at all different points of the game. So I think they're going to want somebody who goes, hey, you know, when I was over in Ponderosa by myself, or when I was in Ponderosa, you know, thinking about who I wanted to vote for, you know, at the end, I think they want that kind of perspective. And so I don't think they get that from
also
Sam.
From a purely production standpoint, I'm not sure how much Rome is willing to share a spotlight, to be honest, right? He doesn't seem like the person who's necessarily the greatest collaborator. And if you're Jeff Probst, do you want to be competing against Rome for commentary all the time?
Yeah. And we have a bunch of people who are commentators. Like, you're right, Sam is a football commentator. We have, I'm pretty sure Gabe also does some kind of like podcasting.
Doesn't Rome do like esports?
But he does. No, he does. And that's why he said he wanted to be do the thing, because he was also, you know, a podcaster and an esports commentator or whatever. But he's not the only one this season. So we have other people who would fit the bill if that's what they're looking for. And I don't know. I feel like they would want a different kind of perspective. And I think it would be somebody who, I don't know. I just don't think that he fits the bill specifically for the if he made it like 2 more votes
further.
Yeah, I think maybe yes, that could be a very big possibility. Very real.
I think the contenders for that right now are Andy and Sam.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
100%.
Agree.
I 100% agree. I want to say thank you so much for anybody who sent in questions. I love the kind of conversations. I always say this, but I love the conversations that it spurs when you guys send in questions. I love these like Bait Blake questions that we got 2 of them. Iconic. But I do want to get to the next segment of the show, which is Cara's sweet thing of the episode. Cara, for those who are new to the show, tell us what the sweet thing is.
Okay, so I have a podcast with my cousin Kateri called the Sweet Things Podcast, and at the end of each episode, we give our sweet thing of the week, and we're gonna do that with Survivor. We're gonna give our favorite moment, favorite thing, if the food looked good, and so mine this week is actually, you know, relates back to Rome. It's Sue wearing Rome's shirt, which I thought was so funny and like random.
Okay.
I just like that.
In the challenge,
that's my sweet thing.
Iconic move from Sue.
I think that's so funny.
It's sweet. That's incredible. Shocking nobody. My sweet thing of the episode will have to do with Andy because, hi, my name is Tegwyth and I don't change. The first time it happened, I let there be a pass and it was fine. The second time, I must address it. Why do they have Andy pumping things? And that is my sweet thing of the episode. It's just, one time is an accident. 2 times, the editors are doing it on purpose, and it's incredible. So, Andy
so
trying to get the bag out of the sand is my sweet thing of the episode.
Why does he keep doing that?
Why are the editors letting it happen? Okay.
Look, like, you find a theme, you go with it.
Exactly. You know, and he's an icon and just incredible. So that's my sweet thing. Brian, do you have a sweet thing in the episode?
My sweet thing is Teeny in the challenge when they couldn't get under the they were like, my ass is too big.
It's so good.
That ass, yeah.
That was good.
Really good moments this episode, and all came from the challenge. This is rare. This is a rare thing for this.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
You know what? I gotta say, the sandwich on the reward did look really good.
Well,
here's the question, though. Mention. Kyle get the bacon. Did he have it with or without the bacon? Is he still a vegetarian?
Well, no, because he ate the chicken wings last week.
But maybe he's a vegetarian again, you know?
That's a real fast turnaround. That's some bullshit vegetarian.
Yeah, no, I don't
You can't pass up bacon.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I don't know. I could.
Yeah,
you could.
I've never had meat before.
Oh, meat. Okay, that's reasonable.
Lifelong veggie.
I couldn't pass up bacon.
I will say I was contemplating whether or not he actually was having bacon, and I was like, he's gotta. If he had chicken wings, he's gonna just go all in until he gets back home, and then maybe he'll go back. But no.
Yeah.
But those are our sweet things of the episode. I love that they're all from the challenge. That makes me so happy. But now it's time for the ultimate award of the Survivor Social podcast, which is the Social Butterfly Award. This is going to be the big award of the episode. It goes to the person that we think had the best social strategy or social gameplay this episode. So it's not going to be the entire season, but just this episode. I feel like we had some contenders here this episode. And I feel like if it was a strategy award, I think it would probably go to Genevieve for me. But it's not solely a strategy award. It's also a social award. And I feel like there are some other people to talk about. Like, I feel like we got some interesting social moments from, Sam, even though in theory he wasn't involved in a lot, Rachel gave him the information. And he kind of made it a unanimous vote because he made it a chaotic vote, which to me seems like he has a little bit more social capital than maybe I had been giving him credit for this entire season. So I'm kind of debating still. Do either of you have like a solid answer? Because I just think this is a very hard episode to kind of pin down.
A lot of social people in this episode for sure. I think there's an argument for Teeny. Part of my problem is I don't think there's a standout social player, at least not from the edit standpoint. Maybe there is behind the scenes and we're not seeing it. I get it. But from a viewership standpoint, like I'm like, this episode makes you think Genevieve because Genevieve is the one who was really the impetus of the whole boot. But then you got someone like Kyle who barely even knows Genevieve based on what he's saying about her. So is Genevieve really? Yeah. And Genevieve's like cutting people left and right. Like Saul, she voted out Rome. Like, is Genevieve really tight with anybody? So is it Sue? Because Sam was like, Sue is the most insulated player, and she's making inroads with all these other people. So is it actually Sue?
I feel like that's a really good argument. Cara, what are your thoughts?
See, I was going to say Gabe because I feel like Gabe is the one who like rallied around got all the votes together to keep it on Soul, got the votes on Soul. But like, I mean, we didn't really see much of it, but I feel like he was definitely the key person in making it happen and keeping it on that.
I think it's the hardest episode of the season to choose. I could see an argument for a lot of different people. I'm kind of leaning towards the Sue argument, just because, why her name came up, but people were very much against it.
Yeah.
And weren't going to have that happen. And even though one of her closest allies didn't have a vote, aka Caroline, it still didn't seem like that was something against her or Caroline, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with Brian. I'm gonna agree with the Sue situation. I don't know. Good. But Gabe is also a really good answer. Like I just feel like I don't know. Is it maybe having your name being thrown out because you're somebody who's so insulated? Is that show how good of a social person you are?
When people start to recognize it, maybe.
Yeah. I think this is the hardest one we've done.
Yeah. It is hard.
I think it's easy. I'm saying Sue.
Sue it is.
Sue it is. Say less. Sue it is. Well, that is the end of our episode. I just want to say, when you crown the social butterfly, what else matters, Yeah. I just want to say, Brian, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. Lady.
You're so much fun. Let the people know, where are you? Where can they find you? Can they follow you somewhere?
For sure. Twitter, I do. I've kind of been a little quiet this season. It's just been a depressing year to be on Twitter, huh? So I still call it Twitter because I was home on January 6th. So I on Twitter. Sorry, whatever. I'm at Brian Corridan because Brian Corridan was taken at the time. So just BRICORRIDAN. And then on Instagram, it's my full name. So Brian Corridan on Twitter. On Instagram, excuse me.
And Cara, where can the people find you?
At the Sweet Things Podcast, Instagram, anywhere you listen to podcasts. That's where you find me.
You do it on Thursdays, right?
Yep.
Amazing.
When new episodes come out, they come out on Thursday.
You know what? If there's one thing, she loves a Thursday podcast. That's real. But there is a lot of fun stuff coming up for Survivor now. We've got a couple more episodes or a couple more shows coming up this week and some big ones. So tomorrow we do have Stock Watch coming at noon. Very big, very exciting. We've got Quinn from BB26 on the episode. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be so good.
I know. It's going to be so much fun. So make sure to check that out if you are available tomorrow at noon. It's also always available on Spotify and on YouTube afterwards. And then, of course, we've got something for you on Saturday at 3 p.m. They are amazing. Cover the whole episode plus more. So make sure to check that out. And we've got a lot of really fun guests coming up in the coming weeks. So make sure to keep an eye out on Instagram and all of that good stuff. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for listening, chatting, commenting, following along. It is so much fun. But we will see you next Thursday. Don't forget to stay